The Mali military have intensified their fight against terrorist elements, both on the ground and in the air. But who are these terrorists in the Sahel? When the terrorists returned to Tombouctou in Mali in the evening, terrorists showed up at his house and wanted to rape his wife in front of him. He opposed them. They left, but the next day they came back to fish him out of his house, brought him to the public square and accused him of theft. His hand was cut off, he was beaten and told to go home. Later they came back, raped his wife and took away his son. They continued to rape his wife for days until she committed suicide. A coordinated air-land operation has helped disrupt terrorist activities and thwarted their attempts to regroup or launch attacks. Precision airstrikes and ground maneuvers have targeted the positions of terrorists with remarkable effectiveness, leading to the neutralization of many hostile elements. Despite the significant progress made, the Malian army has encountered challenges, particularly in rough and isolated areas where terrorist groups have sought refuge. Ambushes by armed terrorist groups have tested the resilience and tactical prowess of the Malian forces. However, thanks to swift and decisive action, these ambushes have been successfully countered, demonstrating the determination and combat readiness of the Malian army. At the end of last year, terrorists in Kidal, northern Mali, cut telephone lines. After several days of airstrikes, the terrorists fled as the Malian army took control of the city, winning a major victory. Operation Kidal was of immense strategic importance in the broader context of Mali's fight against terrorism. By regaining control of the city and its outskirts, the Malian government intends to assert its sovereignty and authority over the entire national territory. Furthermore, the operation sends a powerful message to terrorist groups that their reign of terror will not be tolerated and that their hold over the region is gradually weakening. The armed forces of Mali have been actively engaged in driving terrorist groups out of the country, with the last pockets of resistance falling one after the other in a remarkable display of intelligence gathering and rapid action. The interception by the Malian army of a terrorist meeting near the intersection of the borders between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger shows the effectiveness of a proactive counter-terrorism effort, highlighting the crucial role played by advanced surveillance technology and decisive airstrikes. The operation began when the Malian Army's intelligence unit intercepted a communication indicating a gathering of terrorists in a remote area near the border junction. Aware of the urgency of the situation, the army quickly mobilized resources to monitor and assess the unfolding scenario. A key element of the army's response was the deployment of a surveillance drone to the target area. This aerial asset provided real-time surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities, allowing the army to track the movements of suspected terrorist elements with precision and accuracy. While the surveillance drone surveyed the area, it detected a lone vehicle moving quickly and erratically, exhibiting behaviors indicative of suspicious activity. The Air Force meticulously monitored the vehicle's trajectory, noting its stops, U-turns, and interactions with neighboring structures. The climax of the operation occurred when the vehicle stopped in front of a small house suspected of serving as a command post for the terrorist groups. Shortly after, several armed individuals arrived on the scene, reinforcing suspicions as to the nature of the gathering. Thanks to the intelligence gathered, and at the time deemed optimal, the Air Force launched a precise airstrike targeting the terrorist meeting. Taking advantage of the element of surprise and exploiting a moment of vulnerability, the Air Force dealt a devastating blow to the terrorist groups, neutralizing their presence and disrupting their plans. The interception and interruption of the terrorist meeting near the border between Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger underline the proactive approach of the Malian army in the fight against terrorism and its ability to leverage advanced surveillance technologies to gain a strategic advantage. In the central region of the country, a detachment of the Malian army encountered armed terrorist groups as they crossed the road between Kouala and Mordia. The ensuing confrontation turned into a fierce battle as Malian army units quickly responded with a counterattack. Despite complex ambushes orchestrated by the terrorists, the Malian army demonstrated exceptional courage and determination. The encounter resulted in significant losses for the terrorist groups. Decisive action and strategic maneuvers by the Malian army enabled it to effectively neutralize the terrorists. Multiple engagements along the route resulted in heavy losses for the terrorists, with many fighters neutralized and their communication equipment abandoned. The ferocity of the ambushes and the battle that followed underlined the combativeness and the unwavering commitment of the Malian army in the defense of the nation. Despite a formidable adversary, the Malian army demonstrated remarkable resilience and tactical acumen, thwarting terrorist advances and inflicting substantial losses on the enemy. Meanwhile, across the border in Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traoré launched a surprise offensive against armed terrorist groups. This operation follows repeated calls from Traoré for insurgents to lay down their arms. The operation was prepared discreetly to catch the terrorists off guard in their occupied region near the Mali border. The primary objective is to reclaim a major town and several villages in this area. The mission includes 5 rapid intervention battalions and a mixed battalion of soldiers and volunteers for the defense of the homeland. With the Air Force's support, over 8,000 fighters have been mobilized, equipped with effective firepower and newly acquired heavy artillery. Multiple rocket launchers targeted terrorist bases 30 to 40 kilometers away as troops advanced towards the town of Gassan, where residents had fled due to terrorist attacks. The troops quickly took control of the town, establishing strategic positions and defense lines stretching over 5 kilometers. In a significant victory against terrorism, the Malian armed forces neutralized one of the most notorious terrorist leaders, Hugo, near the border with Burkina Faso and Niger. The decisive moment came when a major battle broke out less than 100 kilometers to the border with Burkina Faso. Despite resistance, Malian forces remained firm, neutralizing several terrorists, including their foremost leader, Hugo. The events that led to the takedown of the terrorist leader started when Colonel Madu and his dedicated team of Operation Nangi successfully traversed the notoriously perilous Valley of the Shadow of Death in the Nara region. Their mission, a critical part of the broader effort to eradicate terrorism, has seen them engage and dismantle terrorist factions that once believed themselves invincible in this treacherous terrain. Over the course of their mission, Operation Nangi has confronted terrorists on 5 separate occasions, each time demonstrating superior strategy and firepower. The commitment and professionalism of Colonel Madu's forces have not only disrupted these hostile elements, but also showcased the exemplary involvement of women in combat roles, highlighting their significant contribution to the mission's success. The terrorism epidemic, which had deeply entrenched itself in Nara, is being systematically dismantled. The Malian armed forces' efforts are likened to curing a cancer that has long plagued the region. With each successful engagement, they move closer to restoring peace and stability, transforming the once dreaded terrorists into mere shadows, fading into obscurity. In the Koila locality, a critical point on the road to Nara, armed terrorist groups launched an attack a few months ago. In response, the men of Operation Nungi embarked on a series of highly dangerous missions to secure this and other key areas. Their operations extend across a challenging landscape, where extreme temperatures, soaring to 48 degrees in the shade test, their endurance as much as the enemy does. Equipped with over 20 kilos of gear, these defenders of freedom meticulously comb through the territory. They face sudden enemy ambushes, but their readiness and swift counterattacks leave no room for terrorist advantage. The engagements between Koila and Morja, passing through Galo, saw terrorists attempting desperate tactics, including fire screens to destabilize the forces. Just in time, the country's long-awaited military equipment arrived. The head of state and the military leader conducted an inspection to ensure the drones and attack helicopters are ready for immediate deployment to the battlefront. This arrival comes at a crucial time, significantly enhancing the operational capabilities of the Malian armed forces in their ongoing fight against terrorism and insurgency. The drones and helicopters are expected to provide critical support to ground troops, offering advanced surveillance, reconnaissance, and formidable attack capabilities. With this new equipment, the operation to take down one of the region's most feared terrorist leaders gained substantial momentum. Hugo, known as one of the top terrorist leaders operating in the tri-border area, played a key role in orchestrating numerous attacks, spreading chaos and fear among innocent civilians. His elimination is the result of meticulous planning and execution by the Malian armed forces, which relentlessly pursue terrorist groups operating in the region. The operation to neutralize Hugo was part of a broader strategy employed by the Malian armed forces, aimed at eradicating terrorist elements and ensuring peace and stability in the region. For this large-scale operation carried out with the greatest professionalism and precision, troops from several battalions were mobilized. Under the direction of Malian army generals, the troops began their mission in the Danguro area. Equipped with a global strategy developed after careful analysis of operational logistics and meteorological information. The objective was clear: track down and neutralize armed terrorist groups while securing Malian territory and protecting the local population. The operation faced many challenges, including ambushes and intense combat situations. However, the determination and resilience of the Malian armed forces, supported by air forces, made it possible to relentlessly pursue and corner the terrorist groups. The decisive moment came when a major battle broke out at less than 100 kilometers to the border with Burkina Faso. Despite resistance, Malian forces remained firm, ultimately neutralizing several terrorists, including Hugo. This significant achievement not only eliminates a notorious threat, but also brings justice to the countless innocent lives affected by his actions. The success of this operation underlines the effectiveness of the Malian armed forces in the fight against terrorism and the restoration of peace in the region. Following the major victories by the Mali armed forces, the president of neighboring country Senegal new elected Bassirou Faye arrived in the Mali capital city Bamako in a show of support and solidarity with his Mali counterpart, head of state Assimi Goïta. Bilateral cooperation between Senegal and Mali shares a unique history that predates independence and continues through the Federation of Mali. I came here to continue strengthening these relations on diplomatic, commercial and consultative levels. We aim to manage common challenges such as terrorism, the fight against illicit trafficking, ecological issues and poverty. We share precious resources like water through the Senegal River, overseen by the OMVS, and face other mutual challenges supporting our people's aspirations. Historically, geographically, and through our deep ties, Senegal maintains privileged relations with Mali. I am delighted with the warm welcome extended to me and my delegation in Mali. I am also pleased to meet my brother, Colonel Assimi Goïta, President of the Malian Transition. We are committed to strengthening bilateral cooperation and enhancing consultation at regional, sub-regional and international levels, particularly on matters of integration. Although this victory marks an important milestone, the fight against terrorism remains ongoing, with the Malian armed forces ready to face any future threats with unwavering determination. The fight against terrorism in Mali has been a long and arduous journey, fraught with pitfalls and complexities. Since the outbreak of conflict in the early 2010s, Mali has grappled with the scourge of terrorism, fueled by a combination of internal grievances, regional instability, and transnational jihadist networks. The roots of the conflict date back to the 2012 Tuareg rebellion, which was quickly exploited by various jihadist groups, including Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, AQIM, Ansar Dine, and later the Islamic State in the Great Sahara, ISGS. These groups have taken advantage of the instability to take control of large swaths of territory in northern Mali, imposing their brutal interpretation of Sharia law and committing widespread human rights violations. In response, the Malian government, with the support of regional and international partners, particularly Russia, launched military operations aimed at reconquering lost territories and combating the terrorist threat. Over the years, the fight against terrorism in Mali has evolved, reflecting changing dynamics on the ground and the adaptation of jihadist tactics. Malian armed forces, supported by regional partners such as Burkina Faso and Niger, have made significant progress in degrading terrorist networks and restoring government control in previously contested areas. The main stages of this ongoing conflict include the liberation of major cities like Tombouctou and Gao, Kidal, the dismantling of terrorist camps, and the disruption of smuggling routes used to finance jihadist activities. With continued political will, strategic coordination and sustained regional cooperation, Mali is ready to emerge from the shadow of conflict and chart a path toward a more peaceful and prosperous future. If you like the videos that I produce on this channel, take a little time to like and subscribe to the channel.